It's a Chinese fish out of water story, but will it flounder? And what kind of good vibrations are we getting from Mark Wahlberg's new film, Mile 22? Did it go the distance? That and more on today's episode of The Real Review. So stay tuned.
Welcome to The Real Review.
Welcome to The Real Review, sponsored by Parametric and Lazy Ape Studios, where you get some of the latest happenings, real thoughts, and perspectives in the world of film and television. I'm here with Matt Boogie Nights. Hey.
Hey now. Everybody, I am here with Joel. Say hi to your mother for me, Cunningham.
It's funny that they're all Mark Wahlberg inspired. Right. I guess we know him much better than we know people from our other movie that we're going to be talking about, Crazy Rich Asians. Yeah, say hi to your mother for me. Everybody wants to eat you. I just want to say hello. Come on. Say hi to your mother.
Hi, dog.
So, yeah.
Go ahead.
Anyway, so yeah, today we're going to be talking about two films. One is a Mark Wahlberg film. The other is Crazy Rich Asians. I guess that's the best way of putting it.
Yep,
John Chu. I know about Mile 22.
John Chu, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir. So before we get into that, why don't let me real quick just discuss kind of how the podcast works here. Cool. Matt kind of has a bit of a more fun perspective, and
sure.
I tend to be more of the critical, controlled perspective. Grumpy perspective, Mr. Grumpalumpagus over here. And that's the way we kind of review things, and we put those together, give you what we think is a real thought and perspective on films and television when we do TV. Which we need to get to at some point.
Yes, we will.
Done for a bit.
We will.
But before we get into what we're talking about today, why don't you give our listeners some ways to get connected?
Yo, real quick, y'all can get connected with us a couple of different ways, namely our website, realreviewmedia.com, which will connect you to all of our social media. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, which is at Real Review Media, youtube.com/The Real Review. You can also email us at realreviewmedia@gmail.com. That's real spelled REEL. Get it? And then you can, so let us know if there's some movies that you want us to check out, or if you got a chance to check out any of the movies that we saw and you want us to, if you want to tell us how wrong we are, that's totally fine.
There you go.
Yeah.
I have been catching up on TV. We will have to do some stuff. I finished off Flash. I'm watching Better Call Saul's back now.
Nice.
I actually just started Man in the High Castle. Already through the first season, and I'm catching up on season 2 of Westworld.
I keep finding myself too tired. I'm sleeping every 2 or 3 hours. My baby keeps waking me up, so I'm like, I'm not.
I totally get it.
I just don't have time. You don't get it.
No, it's not an excuse, Matt. It's not an excuse at all.
You don't get it.
But yeah, I've got plenty of stuff that
cool.
I can talk about when we get to that.
We'll do that.
We'll do that. There you go. Well, why don't we get into talking about some movies that we did get a chance to see, some content. We're going to start off with one, Crazy Rich Asians.
CRA is all of our, all of the friends that we know call it. Actually, no, nobody calls it.
I was like thinking, I haven't heard anybody say that, but
I call it CRA. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, there we go. Synopsis for this one. The contemporary romantic comedy based on the global bestseller follows, by the same name, follows native New Yorker Rachel Chu to Singapore to meet her boyfriend's family. Directed, as mentioned, by John M. Chu. Stars a couple of folks in there. Constance Wu as Rachel Chu. Henry Golding as Nick Young. They're kind of the main couple that's in the film. You have Gemma Chang, Harry Shum, Awkwafina.
Awkwafina, yeah, she was in Ocean's 8.
Yep. Sonoya Mizuno. I think Awkwafina is probably one of the lighter, more fun parts of the film for me. You have Michelle Yeoh as Eleanor Young. She has been in a lot of stuff. Actually, I haven't seen her pop up in too much, but most famously, probably Crouching Tiger is what I know her from. Lisa Liu as Ah Ma. She's kind of the grandma. And there's a bunch of people that are in this. Even Ken Jeong makes a brief cameo of sorts appearance.
Dr. Ken.
This. Yep. So here's what I'd say.
What would you say?
Weirdly can get into a rom-com at times. It depends upon a lot of elements. So I don't want to be that
Topher Grace used to be in a lot of rom-coms, Joel.
He did? I know.
Win a Date with Tad Hamilton. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
wow.
Sorry, guys.
You're just going to keep tying all those Topher Graces back to me. He doesn't look that much like me, Matt.
Joel looks a little bit like Topher Grace.
Anyway. So I really went into this kind of weirdly, I was intrigued because usually with this kind of a film, and I really didn't get a lot from the trailer that I liked. Mm-hmm. When I watched the first trailer for it kind of just looked like a rom-com, but set with a Chinese family backdrop.
Yeah.
And before I went in there, I actually looked at some of the reviews that were coming in, and I was actually like surprised to see how positively reviewed it's been. And it's actually at a 93% on
Yep.
Rotten Tomato, both with critics and fan
Audiences.
audience
Yep.
perspective. So I was like, what is going on with
Right.
this? So yeah, I didn't really know what to expect because it
Yeah.
was kind of like two worlds there. What the trailer showed me, but then what it seemed like the reaction people were giving for it. And I ended up being pretty pleasantly surprised.
Cool.
It became a good film for me. I think some of the strengths of it, for sure, the casting.
Yeah.
Everybody really felt like they fit well within the role that they were given. It felt very authentic when
Okay.
it came to
That's good.
some of the modern sensibility meets traditional aspects.
cultural
the
elements?
cultural, yeah, because it's very much about, this girl, Constance Wu, plays Rachel,
Mm-hmm.
lives in America, born in America, but she comes from a Chinese heritage, Chinese family,
Right.
kind of a rough upbringing, but she's traveling to Singapore, and she knows some Chinese, not Mandarin, but I think she knows some aspect of, there's like 3 primary Chinese languages.
Right,
She knows
right,
how to
right.
speak some of it. And so it's kind of like a fish out of water type thing, but she has roots in that culture and heritage. And so she's trying to reconnect and she's trying to like get into the family, but then she finds out that like, and we've talked about this, I love fish out of water stories.
Right, yep.
Like I'm a big fan of that. And I
Yeah.
think that is really what elevated it for me. If it had just been your family is rich, and my family is poor, and we're visiting your family and they hate me sort of
Yeah.
a deal, I probably would have marked it a lot lower.
Right.
But because she's kind of like unaware of what's going on and she's adjusting into the culture as well as with the family dynamic, is because he doesn't explain like, hey, by the
Right.
way, my family is super loaded.
Yeah.
And I will say this as well, and I'm jumping like a lot of bunny trails here. There's a lot to talk about, but they did a good job of not overwhelmingly trying to make that seem ridiculous. Like
Okay.
it felt like they were realistic with the fact that they had money.
All right. Yeah.
They weren't like trying to shove it in your face, like, look at all the money we've got.
Right.
Like they kind of did it at a couple points, but then when they're like, then we're done with that, they were like, okay, we're gonna move on now.
Yeah.
We're not gonna constantly be like making jokes about, whoa, you've got 8 butlers, and whoa, you've got, like, they weren't doing that.
yeah. They
It was-
weren't like, oh yeah, I just bought that mountain over there.
Yeah,
okay.
and I think that's the thing that I would absolutely say really elevated this script for me more than anything was it was grounded.
Good.
It never felt. There was a couple characters like Aquafina at times. She was a much needed comedic tone. She added a much needed comedic tone, and she was a bit over the top at time. Her whole family was honestly just ridiculous at times, and I think that went a bit too far at
Okay.
moments. There was moments where the humor that was there felt a bit mixed, and I'm kind of like, I think you're trying to be funny here, but it's just not that funny. It
Okay.
just seems a little bit odd. But other than that, other than her, it really felt like a pretty grounded script. You know what I mean?
Cool.
You're expecting almost what the more common path they would take with this is that, fish out of water story, person goes to meet the family, and then it's like a comedy of errors. Like she slips and falls and knocks the porridge all over, or not the porridge, like the soup,
Yeah.
all over the grandma. And then everybody's like, oh, and then she like accidentally knocks down a vase that's like super
So
expensive.
she's like really clumsy.
Well, that's what you would expect.
Right.
Like, they're not clumsy, but somehow in this circumstance, they just all these bad comedy of error type stuff happens. And they didn't go down that route. They ended up keeping it very grounded. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, some of the visuals were very normal. There wasn't anything like groundbreaking as far as like the visual style, but it worked.
Yeah.
The way that the plot progressed and moved forward felt very realistic, and it felt like people were making realistic decisions. And I think that's the thing that I liked about it the most as well, is that in this type of situation, there inevitably has to be some sort of break
Yeah.
where things fall apart. And it wasn't like the people were doing things overly manipulatively or overly bad. It felt like this is the kind of stuff that if this were really to take place in our modern world, in our modern time, that it would have probably gone this way. And maybe it was
Right.
because this was a book first.
I didn't even know that.
Right. I didn't know that either until,
Okay.
the best-selling book. I saw that before when I was doing some research on it, but
All right.
maybe because it was grounded in that way, they didn't feel like they needed to go to ridiculous extremes to try and like get you to see, oh, look how crazy these
right.
people are being. I think that
The
really
title
helped.
alone.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, there was still really crazy stuff. Like they go party on a barge in the middle of the ocean for one of the guy's bachelor's party. You know what I
sounds
mean?
like the Meg.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. No, I mean, I forget his name. Crud. What's his name from Silicon Valley? One of the guys from there is in it, and he's hilarious. But the whole film felt like these are just really, really rich people, but the circumstances felt pretty normal and realistic as to what they were doing. And the money felt like more of a backdrop to the story moving forward. And each character, for the most part, had their own little story that they were going on.
Cool.
You know, they weren't trying to just make this all about one thing with comedy of errors, constantly bad things happening, and is this going to happen or is it not?
Yeah.
It felt more like they're just telling the story of this family, and each of them are going in their different directions and different things are happening. Now, there could have been more development in some areas. Some things kind of just sort of needed to happen, so they just happened.
Yeah.
You know, they have to have this character. Like, they have to have the one guy, the brother there, that and the sister there that she, like, really connects with and gets along well with, that she can be, like, you know, lending ear to cry on. I think one of the weaknesses of the script as well was actually Nick Young's character.
Okay.
Henry Golding, I haven't seen him in a lot. He felt like he was okay.
Okay.
Honestly, his acting job in this felt a little bit forced. At times. It felt like he was trying to fit in the vibe of, like, I'm the rich, handsome prince, you know, heir to the throne type man. And, you know, but I'm also really caring and considerate. And, you know, I'm just this normal guy that just happens to have billions and billions of dollars. You know, it just felt a little bit like forced.
Okay.
I think
I
with
gotcha.
this character. And I don't know what exactly was about it.
It's making its money for sure. It's already made its production budget back opening weekend.
Yeah.
Hasn't even opened internationally other than Italy, I think. So
I was actually surprised. So I went and saw this during a matinee.
Okay.
On a weekday.
Yeah.
And surprised to see that it was actually pretty crowded.
Oh, okay.
In the theater.
Gotcha.
So I think it will do well.
Cool.
And I don't think it's just because we talked about this past. I don't think it's just because it's a Chinese marketed film.
Right.
I think it has a lot of legs to walk on. I think it absolutely is a film that's worth checking out if you're into these kinds of films. Slightly comedic, slightly romantic. More of a, this is what, you know, the grounding of it did is it created it more. It turned it more as like a drama. You know, it definitely fits in the rom-com type world, but it felt more of like a straight-up drama with rom-com elements to it. And I will also say Constance Wu, Rachel Chu, the character Rachel Chu, great job.
Yeah.
Really good job. I think the other slight thing that I could say is that, again, the plot kind of just felt like it needed to go in certain directions. And I get that.
Yeah.
You know, they have to hit certain beats. But that felt very like stereotypical, like checking boxes.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Kind of a thing. So I don't have too much more to say.
Okay.
I mean,
what would you rate it?
I'm actually going to give this one an 84.
Sweet.
So it's a
B.
B right in the B range. It's kind of 83, 84 range. So
cool.
Any thoughts?
No,
questions?
that's good. It's on my list, not my priority list, but it's on my list.
Yeah, it's a pretty good film, and it's the rating is fine as far as, like, you know, PG-13. It doesn't have really anything that awful, and it has some suggested material, but it's fun. It kind of made me want to go visit China.
Nice.
Which I've always wanted to do anyway.
Me too.
Yeah. So, Matt.
Yeah.
Why don't you get into our next film then?
Let's talk about it, guys. I did see a movie this weekend, and it was Mile 22. Real quick, synopsis is: an elite American intelligence officer aided by a top-secret tactical command unit tries to smuggle a mysterious police officer with sensitive information out of the country, directed by Peter Berg and stars Mark Wahlberg, and they've collaborated quite a bit over the last couple of years.
How sensitive is he? Is he like, I'm just so sensitive?
I'll get to that in a second. And then Lauren Cohen, and then Iko Uwais, who I first saw in The Raid, which is amazing. If you're into the action gung fu type of, you know, sort of thing. John Malkovich, Ronda Rousey,
that was a good movie.
Carl Albin. Let me say this movie is getting obliterated on Rotten Tomatoes. People hate this movie, both audiences and critics.
Look at the poster. It's like blurry, and he's like looking down.
I went into this movie because of that, because it wasn't like a split between critics and audiences. Both people hated it, or both groups of people hated it. So I went in with really low expectations.
Yeah.
I liked it more than what people I feel like are giving it credit for, because I will say it had some really, really intense, like, edge of, like, I was biting my fingernails at one point in time, like, ugh, you know, like, what's happening here? And it was extremely violent, what I felt like it needed to be. But here's the problem with this is, I don't know what happened here, because Peter Berg and Mark Wahlberg, in their last three collaborations, whether it be Lone Survivor, Patriots Day, or Deepwater Horizon, I thought were all really good movies. Patriots Day is actually one of my favorite movies of 2016. Super, like, heartbreaking, depressing, but I probably won't watch it again, but it was awesome. And this movie isn't close to any of those.
Yeah.
And I heard somebody say this. I can't remember who said it, but it's totally true. It's like he's channeling his inner Michael Bay. Like, the way that this movie was like the editing is atrocious in this movie. Like it's like jump cuts for no reason, jump cuts.
Oh, man.
Like he was like, this is gonna make it seem more intense, but it's not. It just hurts my face. You know, it hurts my eyes watching this.
It hurt my face watching a movie.
Let's start though. Before I dive into that, I will give it credit where credit's due. It was intense. I felt the intensity. Some of the action sequences were really cool. Lauren Cohen was the best character in this movie. Mm-hmm. I liked her the most out of anybody, and I will say, for the sake of saying it, is this is the best that Ronda Rousey's ever done.
Wow.
Which isn't saying a lot. She hasn't done a lot of mainstream stuff, but she had some really believable moments in this movie.
Okay, because I haven't seen her in anything yet that I'm like, that approaches believability.
So I feel like she's getting better.
Okay.
Kind of like The Rock started. He wasn't very good when
she
he
probably got
started.
some coaching.
Yeah, probably. She probably still is.
Yeah.
But she has some really good believable moments in this movie. And it was super fast paced. It was like basically, you know, from 0 to 100 right away. Mm-hmm. And the opening of this movie was so cool.
Yeah.
It was really, really awesome. I felt like they lost it somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
But it was, the opening of this movie was, I was on the edge of my seat. It was executed well, looked really good. But that's really it. I will say I was into it. I was invested. Getting into the negative side of things, Mark Wahlberg's character was extremely unlikable. Extremely unlikable.
Yeah.
He was just a jerk. And you don't really get a clear sense of why he was a jerk.
Yeah.
I mean, they give him like these little like this nervous tick thing that he does, or like that helps him focus. Like where
Tic Tac.
No, he like snaps a rubber band on his wrist or something like that.
Which he can be a lovable jerk. That's kind of why people like Mark Wahlberg.
Right.
He's like that bad boy, but you know, he's kind of a nice guy still.
Not like that. Like he wasn't like that. He was just straight up like, wow. Like, dude, calm down.
Yeah.
Lauren Cohen,
Say hi
I
to your
feel
mother
like
for me.
Okay, that's another negative of the movie. Somebody actually says that to him.
What?
And
really?
It's not played to be a joke. I don't feel like they even like realized that they were doing it at the time.
Wow.
Yes.
They had to
Yeah,
have.
they said that. Say hi to your mother for me.
Was it John Malkovich?
No.
Say hi to your mother for me.
Yeah.
It's John Malkovich.
So, no, that's not what it was. But Lauren Cohen was the best character in the movie, at least fleshed out. You kind of get a sense of where she's coming from. I don't feel like they wrapped up her character very well. In fact, the end of this movie, it took me a while to think about it, because coming out of the movie, I was mixed. I kind of liked it, kind of didn't like the end of the movie, kind of did. I'm leaning towards not liking the end of the movie now. I feel like they're trying to do what they did in Law Abiding Citizen, which I feel like they pulled off in that movie.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they I don't think they pulled it off as well in this movie.
Yeah.
There were some elements I mean, some of the action I really liked. The editing was the worst though. Like it was shaky cam, like not good shaking cam. There's good, but most of the time shaking cam is not good. It was not good.
Right.
You couldn't tell what was happening. It was like, hey, you know, let's do this scene, punch, cut, kick, cut, kick, cut. Like it was
atrocious.
It was bad.
Yeah.
And they did it during like conversations, like a regular conversation that was not an intense conversation. Like face, he said a word, next face, said a word, next face, said a word. I was like, wow, calm down. Like I was like, my goodness.
Yeah.
And I think he was trying to communicate tension and fast pace and like, you know, all that stuff. It just didn't work. It did feel like a Michael Bay movie in that way. I will even say, I think Michael Bay he typically does better action than what was done in this movie. But Michael Bay's never had a problem with action. He's always done great action scenes and stuff like that. So
it's usually his comedy and drama, dramatic tension that falls.
Right.
Everything else, pretty much, that falls flat. Just kidding.
Mark Wahlberg, unlikable. Lauren Cohen, I think she was the standout in this movie. Other than that, it ended up being better than I liked, but I definitely see why people did not like this movie.
Yeah.
I think the audience members, I think they don't like it because of the ending, and I think that the critics don't like it because it kind of feels like Michael Bay. So that's kind of where I think that comes into play. If I had to rate this thing, I'd probably give it probably a 75.
Okay.
Let's see. So just kind of like I thought, and I will say I will give it that kind of a rating rather than I'll give it a C rating than a D rating because I was locked in. There was a lot of times I was like, dang, dang. Like I went with somebody and he was saying, dang, when something crazy would happen, or like the violence was real. Like it felt like super like intense, real. Like, oh dang, I can't believe that happened several times, and
Yeah.
it was effective, kind of in a way that like Denzel Washington would take care of some bad guys in one of the Equalizer movies or something like oh man, like that kind of action. But yeah, it was okay. It could have been better. The ending, I feel split on, kind of maybe towards a negative more, but yeah, that's it. Mile 22.
All right.
Boom.
Anything else?
It's a sequel to 8 Mile, the rapping movie with Eminem.
Really?
No.
I was going to ask Lauren Cohen when it tied into Walking Dead.
Yeah,
like if this
it
is
could be
Walking Dead, or
It could be. They kind of leave her story open ended.
creating our own universe. Matt,
Yes.
8 Mile
Pocket universe.
turns into Mile 22,
Right.
which then turns into Walking Dead,
Exactly. Done.
which itself is all part of a Michael Jackson Thriller music video.
Yeah.
So
Hey, you got it.
what are the odds?
Nailed it. That's it.
Cool. Well, we'll go ahead. We're going to go. This is a pretty quick one for us, but we're going to go ahead and wrap things up on the podcast.
Yeah.
Then, again, some reminders of ways to get connected. RealReviewMedia.com. We also have Facebook, Facebook.com/RealReviewMedia. Twitter and Instagram are both at RealReviewMedia. We'd love to get your thoughts and perspectives on these films as well. Or shows you're watching, maybe some suggestions on new content. Feel free to send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. realreviewmedia@gmail.com.
Boom.
Matt, anything further?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, let's say this. We will plan to do our next Tube Talk episode sometime soon.
Okay, let's do it.
Can you agree to doing it sometime
I will
soon?
do it, but I can't guarantee I'll have a lot to talk about.
Fair enough.
Okay.
We'll find something that you can just get caught up on. Better Call Saul at least.
All right.
And maybe we'll give like a holistic approach of Flash.
Yeah, sure.
So
We can do that.
Everything from the season, what we thought it was. At
Cool.
the end of the day. Cool. Then it's been real.
It's been real.